And you are watching the BOP, the BLERD official podcast. I am so excited that you are here. We've got an amazing show planned for you. But first, let me introduce my co-host, Hilton George. How are you?
Well, how are you ladies doing? I'm sitting here chilling with my professorial jacket. Look like I got my advanced degree. I got my advanced degree jacket on. And
did you go to Howard University?
That's right. Look. This right here, this is DeVry, class of February.
Yes, DeVry. Shout out to DeVry.
I like that hat though.
I do too. I
like that.
Yes. And we gotta say happy belated birthday to you. You try to slip that in on us.
I mean, what the heck?
Like that day, I wasn't even on social media, and I saw Christi. I was like, Hilton trying to sneak by us. We have to acknowledge the birth of our brother, Hilton George. Happy born day.
Welcome to the world, Hilton.
Welcome to the world,
right?
Hilton. We love you. We mean it.
When you get up past 45, then it's like, oh, you was counting up. Now you counting down.
You don't want to talk about it no more, right? You're like, no, I'm good.
Can you not be like that, please?
I know.
So rough.
And Christi Renee is here also. Christi Renee, who is not ashamed to celebrate every birthday that is for her. She is here for it. How are you, Miss?
Fabulous.
Yes.
As usual, out here in these snowy streets, baby. And I'm excited. Hilton George. Oh my God. You talk about being away, taking a day, some time away from social media or whatever the case. Like I'm so late to so many parties, but I was so glad that day that I happened to catch.
You were so on time.
I was like, damn, my thumb slipped and I clicked on that blue thing and I was like, oh, why he got a birthday and ain't said nothing? And then you can't even wish him. It was
a thing.
He got his stuff set up where everybody. You can't just say anything on Hilton's page.
It sure has.
We'd have birthday couple people like, oh, it's my birthday week. I got people telling me it's my birthday month.
It's too much. I don't want to go to 18 birthday parties for one person. I don't want to do that.
All I want is to go to Chuck E. Cheese.
That's it. Can we go to Showbiz? I want to go to Showbiz.
I'll go to Showbiz. Now, if you can find a Godfather's Pizza, I will fly to your city.
They have Godfather's Pizza in Odessa, Texas, still to this day. So if you ever want to go to Odessa, that's my hometown in Texas. It is very other than Godfather's Pizza, you're gonna hate everything else about it because they own that.
Go into Godfather's, get a slice. Out.
You just go get the Godfather's Pizza. Ignore the shrine to that guy that pretended to be president for 4 years. Like I'm like, y'all really? Lord. Is this where I'm from? Is it, girl? It is like it's like so conservative, and I crack up. I'm like the storm that comes through twice a year to shake them all up. And you know what's so funny is that my whole family is so liberal. Like we're like the liberalist family in the world. So I'm like, how do y'all live here? How is it still like the place
we paying our taxes here?
Texas is like the place that they want to be right. You go to any of the major cities, you go to Houston, you go to Austin, you go to Dallas, and you feel like woo woo woo, it's great. But then they will be like Florida and disappoint you and be on that ish. All them smaller cities are on that, you know what? But needless to say, they still got Godfather's Pizza, and it is still really good because I've had it. But guys, I'm so glad you're here. Hilton, happy birthday. We are glad we did not miss it. You deserve to be celebrated. We all deserve to be celebrated. It's like, this is our time. What does my husband always say? Because every year I never want to do anything for my birthday. He always says, what is the opposite of having a birthday? And then you get hit with the reality of that. And he goes, so you need to celebrate. You need to celebrate. You got to just be happy you're alive. And we're happy you are. And we're happy you're here with us. And oh my gosh.
Let's see what happens by the end of the show.
I know, right? Oh boy.
We bring you nonstop joy. You know, you're counting down until we're at a Comic-Con with you, Hilton.
Exactly.
He doesn't realize how much he loves our energy, Christy. Like, he loves us and doesn't want to admit it.
He front,
That's
girl.
okay.
He
That's
front.
okay. Because
Playing it
anybody
cool.
who takes you to get barbecue ribs, they love you. And that's where we are.
That's a Southern marriage proposal. That's what
right.
You want to go get ribs. Whoa, first date, slow down.
Podcasting
and wearing all white. And wearing all white with his American Psycho handmade DIY bib, body bib.
Oh my God.
And didn't spill a drop. Ain't that
we didn't get a picture. Why? How we didn't get a
I got video and photo.
Yes,
we were supposed to roll that out.
Again, because I need people to see this. The reality is this: we went to a rib shack in Atlanta, and he shows up with all white. And it was not a problem because Hilton, being the MacGyver that he is, he went and he asked him for a trash bag and made himself a whole body cover. So he was fine. He was fine.
And it was one of those clear trash bags. So she said I was looking like
American
Psycho. And he did.
I was with my outfit,
but he ate them ribs.
Cellophane.
Tip to tip. He ate them
left
ribs.
to right.
Left and right, tip to tip. There was not a piece
had
of
them
meat
bones
left
whistling.
on that
I was
bone.
looking like Master of the Pan Flute, Zamfir in this mug.
Not the typewriter sound effect.
Like, I was doing the same thing. That's the only reason why I know.
I mean,
we were all eating the ribs. Oh my gosh. So guys, how is life? Life has been heavy. Like, it's almost like the last few days I have not watched the news because I do not want to be like, it's so traumatic. It's so terrible. And like the aftermath of just the terrible things that have been happening. I mean, we've had mass shootings in California back to back. We've had the horrible murder and beating and it's almost like you have to just insulate yourself. But what's great for me is like like you said, Christy, I stayed off of social media. I almost missed Hilton's birthday because of it. I stopped watching the news. I literally dove into watching like shows that made me happy. I told my husband, I'm like, if I'm not watching a superhero movie, I'm watching HGTV because nothing goes wrong on HGTV. They buying houses and they making things better. They rebuilding things over there. So I was like, and so I know it's not going to be interrupted by like some terrible news, you know, where every other channel could be interrupted by something awful.
HGTV, if you was watching that, you would miss the update when the comet's coming. Like the asteroid could be breaking through the atmosphere,
and I'm gonna be
the
watching
Property
Chip
Brothers
and
will still be
Joanna.
there talking about, you know.
I'm watching Egypt and her husband remake Atlanta. Like, I'm literally.
Oh my God, I did her makeup before years ago for an award show. She's so cool. Egypt Sherrod.
She's been around forever and literally has been on HGTV for like years. And now her show's a huge hit.
Yeah.
And this had nothing to do with the show that we planned today, but I just want to send her a shout out, her and her husband. I love it. Yes.
Come make my house over.
I want her to decorate something for me, please. I wonder, like, you see how big her house is, so you know she ain't cheap.
Yeah, no.
Egypt getting them coins.
She's my basement got this little Chamberlain, 1976. You know,
I like that though.
Come on, wood panel.
Come on, wood panel.
Panel here.
We can
termites won't even mess with it.
We can paint your paneling. I've learned so many things on HGTV. Hilton, let me come over. I will redo your space. He said the termites.
It's all a mess.
Oh,
it's slick.
Guys.
That's good.
Guys, okay, so this is something that I didn't know I needed, and it came out the other day, a few weeks ago or whatever. There were some deleted scenes from Black Panther Wakanda Forever, and if you haven't watched it, you better watch it. And let me tell you guys something. Shout out to AMC. AMC announced the other day that for Black History Month, they are going to do $5 movies, and you can go see Wakanda Forever. You can go see you can go see Woman King, all the Black movies that came out this year, you can go see them at AMC for $5.
Oh, come on now.
Yes.
$5.
So AMC, if you haven't seen it, this is the thing. I know that Black Panther is on Disney Plus and you can stream it, but you gotta see this movie on a big screen.
Yes.
So if you haven't
thing
seen
of popcorn and a root beer.
You need that sound. Like you need
I need to text my son and tell him that right now. In Philly, my baby hadn't even seen it yet, y'all, because he's been working so hard. I know. My child of all.
You had to pull up a black van, got to screech up next to him.
We're gonna yank him and his girlfriend. They're gonna get kidnapped to go see.
I'm about to do this right now on our show because this is the show that I can do. She can't
even wait. She can't even wait.
I gotta tell him now because I didn't know that. I didn't know that AMC.
Shout out to them, because that's the way, like for me, these bigger corporations, they've obviously already made money on these movies. They've done it. This is one way to get people in seats. And like right now, since COVID, these movie theaters have been trying to rebound from this, but this is the way to do it. I'm going to go see them all just because I want to first support Black films. But secondly, because it's super cheap. You can't pass $5 movie. Like when was the last time we had a $5 movie?
Nowhere.
Right.
Nowhere. Yeah. Nowhere.
Okay. That was $1 gas, $5 movies.
Come through.
There's a whole lot of that, boy.
Come through. Well, we are gonna watch the deleted scenes. Chrissy, I need you off your phone because I need your undivided attention.
I'm sending it. Listen,
send it.
Y'all,
you can do that after the show.
Our BOP family cares about this. He got the message, y'all, and thank you, BOP family, for letting me let Kingdom in on that. He got to go see these Wakanda Forever and Woman King.
Yes, please. Okay, so before we go any further, let's watch these deleted scenes. Okay, here we go. Here we go.
I hear horns.
The border. We must speak about the future of Wakanda. The other elders fight for the right to the throne, drawing straws to decide on who will get the honor of being assassinated by Namor next.
And what is it you believe should be done?
We must perform the ritual at Warrior Falls, as tradition dictates. And I want you to step forward on behalf of the border tribe.
To become queen?
No one has more support among the people than you, Queen. Sanalam. Wakanda would be proud to stand behind you.
And what of Shuri?
We cannot allow the whims of a grieving woman to sway the fates of our great nation. My advice would be to lay low as the drumbeat of war builds. Then, when the dust settles, you will become the leader this country truly deserves.
I'm glad they deleted that.
That Wakanda tea is strong.
Woo!
That's a lot.
Game of Thrones stuff going on over here.
Yeah,
Like,
that's very interesting.
You know what though? I think that the fact that they're releasing it means they want us to see it, right?
Yes.
Second, I think this might be part of the plot of, the Agents of Wakanda, and the storyline is that you got instability, as to who's going to be king, even though right now M'Baku would be sitting on the throne. What if, he didn't go to Warrior Falls for that? He didn't fight anybody for it. So it's like, there might be some folks that don't think that, that he should be in there. So this could be like one of those subplots that kind of goes into that next storyline they're going to be telling on the series.
Yeah, that's the cool thing about when you get the deleted scenes. Like it always opens up a whole can of worms, and you're always like, why didn't they put that in there? Or why did they take that out?
And we didn't notice I didn't know she was from the border tribe.
Right.
I didn't either. So that's
a revelation too.
Well, and it makes sense because, her husband and but she became part of the Dora Milaje. And so it just opens up another can of worms to her backstory that we didn't even know about, that we kind of needed. But yeah, that's interesting. Like that was like, ooh. But
That makes me question also. I know we just brought up, her husband. Is Daniel Kaluuya? He's still alive. I mean, they were just, brought to their knees, of course. But that's
He's
interesting.
in jail, like in prison or
Yeah.
something.
I wonder
Spell
are we
that out,
going to
but she
see
mentioned it.
some kind of resurgence there?
And that's another thing. Like, what could happen with him coming back on the television series if he gets out? Queen Ramonda's gone. There's no one from her family sitting on the throne. That could change the whole dynamic, especially if they go to war. So who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? We may see my man come back.
I know. Okay. Yes. This deleted scene. I want to know if they're going to release any other deleted scenes, because that deleted scene gave me so much in like a minute 40.
Yeah.
Like I want more, because there's probably like half an hour of movie that's on the cutting room.
Oh man. Like, he said some of it was going to be like 4 hours at one point.
Yeah.
I remember there was something. Now I don't know if they shot 4 hours of footage, but I remember them saying that this is a 4 hour movie. Before it was released. So if they got an extended cut, if you can do it for Lord of the Rings, you can do it for Lord of the Kings. I want to see every bit of it. Bring it up.
Every bit.
Cue it up. Disney. Cue it up.
Well, like you said, they could put this, that could have used that scene, and that scene could have easily gone into her series. And you just never know. But no, literally, like when you shoot a movie, you shoot so much stuff, and there's so much stuff that never makes it, and you go, why did they cut it? But a lot of times, it's please, if they don't show us more, at least incorporate that into her series and all the Wakanda world that we're gonna get, because I can't wait to get that world. Like, I want to know more. Exactly. I need to know more.
Exactly. And can I say, I mean, it's a side note, but
yes,
even with a scene like this, right, where they're walking in the field, there's no CGI, nothing. It's like the costumes are so on point.
Come on, Ruth.
You checking my man's pauldrons. That ain't necessary. They could have put it. He could have come out there looking like Steve Harvey with a shawl. And would have been fine. They gave my man the captain's collar.
Ruth ain't gonna let that happen.
Exactly.
Yeah, Ruth, Miss Carter, honey. She is not going to let that happen. She's so fierce.
You got to be right.
Congratulations to her, by the way. She's doing
another Oscar nomination, but she is an Oscar winner overdue, honey. She's been the costume designer on all the movies we have idolized throughout our whole lives.
Since Spike Lee.
She need to get a clothing line out there so people can start paying her directly for her work.
Hello.
Because I would buy something, right? Like, that is what I'm talking about. Okay, but this is another thing. Now, you guys know, every time Hilton suggests a project, I gotta listen, because it's usually something I would never want to watch, and it's usually something that is gonna scare me, and I might have a nightmare or two, but it's something I instantly fall in love with. It's always something that's really good. Christi has this quality too. They know how to pick good films. Like, this is the thing. We could review so many things, but we want to review the things that are on the pulse of what's happening right now. And is this show, okay, the show that I am talking about, The Last of Us on HBO. It was originally a video game.
Award-winning video game.
Yes. And you guys know the history of that. When you you take a video game and you turn it into a TV show, it has not worked. It has always fallen flat. This show is excellent. Huh? What did you say?
I said Resident Evil.
And I'm like, no name.
It was awful. Yeah, but you know what I'm saying? It was awful. And I think they always forget. They go for like the bells and whistles. Like they go for the explosion, the things that excite you, but they forget about the stories. They forget about the characters. They forget about the emotional journey that a story needs to tell you and needs to take you on. And the bells, the whistles, the things that excite you are going to be there. Obviously, if you're if you're taking the source matter and you're making it into a television show. But this show did not forget any of those things. This show, the storytelling, the character building. I mean, I want to go play this game. I'd never I'm not even a gamer, and I'm not play this. And honey, oh my God, I try to explain the show because my husband comes in when I'm watching like episode 1, And I'm like, okay, the world, and then there's this virus, and then this girl, she's so cute, and then she like they're running, and the neighbor tries to kill her, tries to eat her, and it's like, and he goes, all of that happened in one episode. I'm like, yes. It's only 3 episodes in, but this show has captured the world. It has already been renewed. After 2 episodes, it was renewed for a 2nd season. That's how good it is. That's how phenomenal this show is. Hilton, you know way more about the history of this show and it being a video game. Like, I'm not a gamer. I would never even think to watch it. And I'm glad you brought this into our world because it's such a great television show. And when I found out it was a game, I was blown away. I literally was like, get out of town. Get out of town. But tell them more about it. So if you're like me, this is for us.
Yes, this is one of those things where there are more people. You'd be shocked how many people don't know that this is adapted from a video game series, right? Right. It's a long-running, award-winning video game, The Last of Us, that has so much rich storytelling and, just scenery and things that are outside of the direct gameplay that are part of its quality, that, it's easy to adapt because you have characters that are somewhat developed. There's a mission. It's a rich storyline and plot. But what they are doing with these characters is that they are fleshing these stories out beyond what you got in the video game. They are making certain shift decisions, which, on paper, there are a lot of purists who'd be like, oh, they made the character do this when they in the game, they did that. But you got to remember, you're making a series story where nobody's picking up a joystick and playing the game. So you got to figure out like how you're going to tell the story. And there's some amazing casting decisions here that even if they don't look just like the character from the video game, they're damn close.
Yeah, they are.
Pedro Pascal is Joel in just the texture and the voice. It's like, when you see some of the moves and you see some of the scenes, it plays so much into the game that you almost don't know which clip you're watching. Like, is this a clip from the game or is this a clip from the show? Because it's so faithful to it. An interesting thing that kind of threw me off is that, did you know the young lady who plays the daughter in episode 1 is Thandie Newton's daughter? I was joking. Like, she looks so much like her. I was like, where did they find a child look that much like Thandie Newton? And then I was looking on the dailies and it was like, yeah, Thandie Newton played that to her daughter. And I'm like, what?
Oh my God. Okay, the actress is Nico Parker and she plays Sarah Miller. And this young lady, like within seconds, captures your heart. Yeah. Like first scene,
lives the screen.
There's something about her, but it's like her mother. She kind of embodies like Thandie Newton. Anytime you see her in a movie, within seconds, Thandie just
eyes, everything.
Dang, I did not know that.
Oh, that's
now.
Rich.
Now let's make a decision here, or just remind people that we will be putting spoilers out. So if you haven't seen the series yet, we're gonna talk about it here, and we're gonna try not to ruin stuff, but we got to talk about stuff that we talk about.
We're breaking down the first 3 episodes, so there's still plenty of series for you to watch.
What is so interesting about this is that most zombie movies they take a minute to kind of kick in. Whether we go through that long period of time where one person got bit by a monkey and went through Europe, and it took X amount of years before everybody got infected. This is a fungus, right? And the fungus ends up in the food supply that is going into. Scary. I mean, you can imagine if the fungus is in flour, or if the fungus is living in sugar and is being, distributed, coming out of a city that makes this and distributes to all of these companies that make hamburger buns and industrial, biscuits in a tube, you name it. And then you reach a critical mass of this fungus in your body, and then just the world pretty much on a dime just turns into these zombies that are run by fungus. Now, the science behind this is just as fascinating as the story, because in real life, funguses do take over insects and animals and force their brains to enact different behaviors that benefit benefits the fungus and not the animal. So going out and getting eaten by a fish so that the fungus can live in a body of an animal versus an ant, things like that, bad behavior, leaving the hive, all of those sorts of things, you go a little crazy And so you see this playing out. And what's interesting is that they actually walk us through that. They have these vignettes in the beginning of episode 1. You kind of got this 1960s science, roundtable discussion like the McLaughlin group or whatever.
Yeah.
And the guy's talking about, I fear fungus more than viruses or bacteria because we don't have any cures.
That first scene, honey.
And it's so dark.
Them doctors, yeah.
But it lays this foundation that helps us bridge the gap and understand what we're dealing with. Whereas with shows like The Walking Dead, we never really get to know what started it or why, because it would complicate
Patient
the story.
zero. There's no.
Yeah.
And they don't want to give the audience a sense of hope to try and follow that they're going to save the world other than themselves. This does in one episode say, hey, look, if this happens, we lose. That's it. There's no cure. There's nothing. And so the collapse of Western society basically happens in a minute. Basically go to work, come back, planes falling out the sky, people running in the street screaming, getting bit, blood everywhere. It was like that. Yeah. And Joel, who is the lead character played by Pedro Pascal, is driven by the loss of his daughter, Sarah, who ironically is not killed by zombies, but by the infected. He's actually killed by military soldiers. Yeah. Because they thought they were infected. So you see the instant collapse of society, and it just defines him. And then it fast forwards 20 years, and the world is overgrown, and it's 20 years later, and everyone's in this different space. And we're getting to know these characters, and we're getting to know the world that has remained and how, and there's hope, because there's a young lady by the name of Ellie, who is may have the hope for a cure. Now, you may remember her as Lady Mormont from the Game of Thrones, a little girl who was the lady of the house. She was like 9 years old, talking cash money shit like that the whole season. That's her.
Yes.
She got the same mouth, honey, in this one.
It's that same mouth. It's that same vibe. And it is doing so many things right that other zombie and apocalypse shows and movies get wrong, is that we are caring so much for these characters, and they're doing it so fast. I mean, we're only on episode 3, and I feel like we're 3 seasons in. Right. I feel like we've been watching this forever, and it's just like, it's so amazing to watch. It's so scary. It's funny. The special effects, and I mean, not the CGI, which there is some, but oh my God, the actual practical effects.
Oh my gosh.
The makeup and prosthetics is right out of the video game. And it is horrifying, and it is scary, and it will make you squirm and jump in your seat and all that sort of stuff. But when it needs to be the backdrop and the story needs to be told about people, the show pulls back from the apocalypse long enough for you to get to know these characters. And I mean, how can we not talk about this last episode? Episode 3?
Well, hold on. Hold your thought on that, because I got to get Christi's thoughts on it. So this is the thing. This is what I loved about the show, because like finding out that it came from a video game, that blew my mind. Secondly, like you said, it mixes, it does a beautiful dance of having, you've got, this horrific tragedy that's happening. You have the world change in the blink of an eye, which is very when we all found out, this is nothing compared to this, but when COVID hit and the world shut down and we had to stop going play, instantly that happened within a week, where it was okay, it's a pandemic, everybody stay home, put your mask on. And then we were like, whoa, but it shows you the horrific way that the government handled it, the military. If this was something that actually happens, we could have all these protocols in place, but there are so many things that they get right, and there's so many things they get wrong. So many things. And it's just the atrocities as humans, what we do to survive, and the lengths that we will go to try to just avert tragedy or try to save ourselves or try to save our children. And you, like you said, the first episode, I mean, honey, they packed it all in. I mean, we fall in love with this girl. We're just seeing her reaction to these, you know, terrible, like we see it through, she sees it first. She goes to her neighbor's house and this like old woman who was like in a wheelchair, who was like catatonic, who didn't even like speak, is eating her kid, like eating her, whoever the daughter and the husband that were taking care of her. Yeah. And it is just horrific. And within minutes, we lose this beautiful girl. And you know what Joel's mission is. You know where he's at. You know his hurt. You know it all, right? And but Christi, like you know me, I watched this and then I instantly had to go watch like Downton Abbey or something because I was like, where is Christi?
She watched some cartoons afterwards.
I had to go watch something that was like so wholesome that I was like, I can't, like I was petrified at what happened to these people. But what was your thought? Because this was something we sprung on you. We were like, Christi, go watch this. She was like, okay. And then she's like, I watched them all. And it was amazing.
Yeah. Well, first, y'all know this is like right up my alley because I'm always the, you know, the world is going to eat us alive.
She's ready for it. Christi,
I'm ready.
I
stay ready, so I don't have to get ready. So no, I love stuff like this. I do not, however, do zombie like stuff. I haven't. I mean, it's just been like that's never been really my thing. I mean, I did love World War Z. So I think going into this, one, I did not know it was a video game. Two, I was receptive. I was open to it. And of course, there were a couple of things. I will say when I first saw the Infected, and I was just like, but then I'm gonna tell you what sold me really, really heavy was at the end of each episode, the directors and the cast, and they do this behind the scenes.
It on HBO Max. Yes.
It's like an episode, you know, it's almost like an extra episode.
Yeah.
And they break down certain things, different elements of each episode. And then they just talk about in creation of this and watching it right. And I love that it comes on immediately because I was ready to move to the next thing. But I grew some appreciation, some real appreciation for when they started describing, sorry, my dog is going crazy, y'all. When they started describing the way that they, you know, how they came to create those heads with the blooming fungi and Hilton, I know, correct me if I'm wrong, you know, that's the pluralizer.
He's the
funguses.
That ain't right.
Okay. I thought it was fungi.
No, you're right.
Oh, okay. Lord, I'm trying to be smart.
I'm messing with you.
So, okay. So I was, y'all see my cords because I got cords.
Yes, we see them.
So I grew some, I discovered something that I was like, you know what? One, I made also a connection to something else. So when they start talking about, I loved how they opened up in the, what was it, in the 60s, I think. It was a talk show, and they were talking about all of that. Very interesting. And again, it sets the scene. And then they, the sugar and the wheat and all of that. Well, as the show progresses in episode 3, and we get to see, I love Nick Offerman anyway. So I saw that he was a part of the show. And I'm telling y'all right now, I said in episode 1, I'm just sticking around for Nick Offerman. I just want to get to him because he's so, you know, I just like him. And so I'm so glad that I did. And then there was a moment where I was like, oh man, they're kind of, I feel like we're derailing a little bit. But then I understood what was happening. It was this, you know, this incredibly different, you know, in this real bizarre scenario, there was still a love story that wasn't your typical. It was kind of considered atypical. And so you have this, and then it just shows over all this time, you know, what's happening in the world and with these two people that feel like they're the only ones in the world.
Literally.
And the things that they were able. And the things that they were able to not only grow with the earth that was just reserved in their space, but also between each other. I thought that was fascinating. But they had an argument, in the middle of the street, and of course there's no one around but them. They have this argument, and Frank is telling Bill, who is played by Nick Offerman, saying, listen, everybody's not a Nazi and such and such. He's like, but everybody in the government is a Nazi. And let me tell y'all, on that moment, I literally hit my space bar and was like, let me pause this for a second, because it made me think about, if you haven't seen Hunters, you have to watch Hunters with Al Pacino and a whole cast of amazing people. They ended it after season 2, and season 2 is phenomenal, just like season 1. But in season 1, the Nazis that escaped all sorts of whatever. And again, if you've seen it, it's incredible. And it is a story that is, again, highly believable and speculative, but it's like, oh my God. Well, a lot of Nazis were planted in the US, and they have escaped all forms of punishment because of things that they brought to science, things they brought to medicine and literature and all that kind of stuff. So how they were going to take over and do a Fourth Reich was rooted in sugar. And they were going to implant this sugar, but they were going to distribute it to, of course, poor Black neighborhoods, any person of color who wasn't, part of the ultimate white race. And so it just made me go, oh my God, it's like, it's such a theme in and of itself. Yeah. And I thought, this is really smart. So again, we're not just looking at some zombie thing.
There's a real story here.
There's real, like, historical, it's speculative fiction, but it has it's rooted in some form of history that is so important that if we don't dig deep into those things, again, art imitates life imitates art. Like, it's just a constant cycle. And so we will, if we don't pay attention, we will find ourselves in these situations. And so I just love the minds of the people who put these stories together. Yeah. And I know it was a game, so even from the game, but those of us who don't play those games, you now have given the rest of us, something to look at and appreciate and learn from.
Exactly. But what I will say is, like, they took this game that you said had like an award-winning story, had an award-winning, like the visual effects in games nowadays is like a full-on movie. Like, it's crazy when you see these video games that they look so real. But what I love, we skipped over a lot of things, but when the world collapses, what the government does is they basically make these almost like concentration camps, right? And they're enclosed so that the infected can't get in, but it also makes the people who are in there prisoners. And they develop this whole system, and it's supposed to save us, but it also is the oppression. And you can see, like, people like Joel and people like Tess, who we meet, how they've been, like, they figured out ways to escape. They figured out ways to go and see what's happening in the world. And they also realize that although the government is in some way protecting us, they're also doing horrific things in order to keep this. It's almost like we got our chance to control them all. We got our chance because we got them in the bubbles, and we got them, and it shows all this, like, the things that have happened in situations. Like, I mean, we've had people who have, like, they come from other countries and they put them in these camps, and they put, like, this stuff still happens. And they try to use things to scare you so that you go, oh no, they should be in those camps. Let's legitimize why they should be there. But one of the things that I love is that they, throughout this series, they kind of jump back and they show where they go into Asia, and they show this doctor, and she's eating her lunch in this cafe. And, like, the HBO has done a beautiful job of hiring creatives who know how to set a normal story, and then it just gets flipped on its axis, right? Like, horrific things happen in normal everyday life. Like, she's sitting there having her lunch. They come in, and it's like they all come in and they grab her, and she's like, what's happening? And they go, we need you to see something. And she goes in, and she's a scientist or a doctor who studied this kind of fungus and has studied these things, right? And it's the creepiest scene. Like, she literally goes in, and they're like, okay, like, there's this one guy who's like, okay, go in. we found this lady. She was killing people. They had to kill her. And she's just like, what? Like, she just can't even believe it. And she kind of goes in with this, like, you know, so she can't, like this. And she goes in and she kind of starts, you know, looking at the body, and the guy's like, look at her feet. And she sees the bite mark that's on her ankle. And she's like, you know, like, do we know who bit this person? And they're like, we don't know. And then she's like, and she started biting people. And she's like, how many people did she bite? And she's like, 14. And they're like, where are they? They're missing. And it's all just like crazy.
You can see her face just kind of turning white.
And what she does is she goes into this person's mouth and she cuts something out and she pulls it out and she sees it. And like, she literally, and it's moving, and it's like, she drops, and she like can't get out of there fast enough.
Yeah, and she's like, I just want to go home and be with my family.
Yeah,
like,
well,
she knew in an instant
that this is awful, this is bad, and she literally, you know, they take her back to a quiet place, and she's sitting there having tea, and you're just like, what the is happening, right? And her advice to them is bomb the city. Like, that's the answer. There's no vaccine. There is no cure.
Yeah, you can't
bomb the city. You
as
have
much as you can.
Yeah, because if we don't know what infected her, and then she infected 14 people, and they started trying to eat people,
and they're missing.
Yeah, bomb the city. But she goes, but by the way, take me home so that I can at least be with my family, because I need to die too.
Right, exactly. That's the unspoken thing, is that she was eating. And remember, there was the subtext of, you know, if this is, because the woman worked in like a flower processing plant.
Yeah.
She's like, it was the perfect place to incubate a fungus.
Storm. Yeah.
And so she knew that is where it was, and that was where it was growing. And she knew that the plant was supplying, you know, so many different, you know, areas and distribution. And she's like, you know, even me, because if you're eating food, and if it's in sugar or
just
if it's in flour, you've been consuming it, and it's in you. It's just a matter of time. So she didn't exclude herself. She didn't say quarantine people. She said bomb everything. And to that point, we don't see we don't see the bombing.
Yeah.
But when they go out of the city from where Joel and them are starting on their mission, and you see these big craters, they do comment that, oh yeah, you know, this is one of the places where the bombing actually worked to slow the spread long enough for us to have these quarantine zones. And the places where that didn't work, there are no quarantine zones. They are no man's land. So there's only a couple of these. And they just literally bombed Philadelphia. And then they bombed Boston, and they bombed any of the city centers. They just dropped bombs on them. And it's like that reality, we saw it in her face. Like, he was drinking the tea as he was briefing her as to, okay,
shaking.
Who bit her? And I think they found the person that bit her, and they had to kill him. But he's like, okay, well, how many people are missing from work that you can't find?
Yeah,
like 14.
Yeah, that's it.
And her tea starts shaking in a little saucer, and then she has
she knows it's too far gone.
And what's so crazy is that that's actually in a lot of ways more frightening than some of the scenes with the infected.
Terrifying.
You know,
terrifying. Psychologically terrifying.
It's psychological. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh my gosh.
Well, and think about, like, okay, you know, one of my classes right now is, which I thought I was going to hate, because I hate having to overanalyze things, especially because I'm a creative writer. So I just want to write my thing and get it out there. And so it's critical analysis of literature, right? So one of the theories that we were just studying, of course, is Marxism. So it's like, when you think about cultural studies and Marxism and all of that, like, this is a perfect example, just another perfect example of when we think about, you know, consumerism, and we think about the food industries, and we think about these massive, like, think about the people who made money off of sugar, who made money off of, like, even when you work in factories and plants, you know, with asbestos being just freely out there. And just imagine if these things, they do take hold of our bodies. I mean, hell, my dad just got out of the hospital for his 74th birthday. Happy belated birthday, Daddy.
Happy birthday.
It was in the hospital because he has COPD and has never smoked in his life. But you know where it came from? Back in the 70s, he worked in a factory for a short stint, and it was asbestos that they would just brush off, and it was just in the air, and they would just, it was that prevalent. And so you think about all these systems, these are bigger systems.
Yeah.
And then think about the world systems that, again, these it's just mind-blowing. And again, it's a nightmare because you don't know how to make it stop. And then you have to figure out, how can I protect myself? So I'm like Bill, I'm going to have a a bunker in the bottom of the house. Loaded.
Get to episode 3.
Digging now. Digging now.
Yes.
And it makes it make perfect sense. This is why somebody, but he was hip to it. Now, I mean, if you've got to, you know, he was like, he was excited. He admits he was happy that people died.
People.
Yeah,
he
was
the
so
people.
happy when he looked down and didn't see nobody.
Yeah, but he was a miserable. He was also a miserable soul. You know, I mean, he was pretty miserable until he found a reason to live and to love. And it's like, oh, some people are worth saving. You know, you can't just kill everybody off and be the only one. But I appreciate how there's pockets of you know, people that exist, and like with Bill, he created his own little world, and then until he got a new person, his own utopia, which again, it's interesting way to balance those, because there is no real dystopia and no real, you know, you have a bit of both. It's always going to be some of both. But I liked that they showed these different different ways of people being alone and left behind and having to, you know, figure out a new way to live. And, you know, one of my favorite shows, of course, it reminds me, but it's not as, it didn't have zombies or people that were, you know, they just died, you know, and with Station 11, you know, but again, it talks about humanity. It really is. It always goes back to humanity and humankind.
Well, that's the beautiful part of this story. I think that's what separates it from other video game adaptations, is that they inserted a real human story. So you have all these you have all these things that are happening that are freaking terrifying, right? But you also have characters like Tess, and you have characters like Frank, and you have characters like Bill, and the reality is, if something like this really happened, there are going to be people who want to find the real answers, and who aren't going to be satisfied living in that bubble and getting whatever it is the government tells them. There are going to be people like Joel who have to go outside and have to see what's really happening, and have to experience life, and have to understand the bad, the good. And one thing that happens in this story, and you mentioned it earlier, Hilton, is that while all of this is going on, there's a beautiful actress. Her name is Meryl Dandridge. She plays Marlene. She finds this young girl, right? And this is Ellie. She comes across this young girl. Ellie was bitten by one of these zombie people, whatever, but Ellie did not turn into one of them. Ellie did not, you know, her, like, the whatever the fungus is, it's in her, and it's even the markings of where she's bitten is there. And they put her in a room, and they would test her temperature every day. She's even got the temperature that the infected would have. So she tests positive, but she doesn't turn. And so right then she knows, you know, Marlene knows this girl. I don't know who she is, why her body's reacting to this, but this girl is the secret to the cure. This is the one that we have to, you know, and it just so happens that Joel and Tess, they're trying to get a battery, like they're trying to get a car battery of all things. And of all things, they just want a car battery so that they can be able to escape and go out into the world.
Well, he wants to find his friend, remember?
He wants to find his brother. He wants to find his brother, because his brother was a part of the, or they call it Firefly, or what? Fireflies. And his brother and him kind of, like, you know, his brother saves him at some point when you see, like, episode 1, and the military's about to kill him, and you know, at the moment we don't know the daughter's been shot, but it's about to kill Joel, but the brother saves him. And he mentions that him and his brother have kind of fallen out, and he's got to find his brother, and he wants to, you know, figure out what's going on with his brother. But they're trying to get a car battery, and they run across Marlene and Ellie, and Marlene's like, look, I'll give you anything you want. Anything. And then he's kind of like taken aback because he's like, anything? And he's like, yeah, but you have to get this girl to this Firefly station because they're searching for a cure. And she doesn't even say that. She doesn't even tell him that, right? Like, she doesn't even tell him, but she's like, you just got to get her there. And he's like, that's it. And like, yeah, you just got to get her there. And then they find out, him and Tess find out later that this young girl could potentially be the key to curing all of this.
She actually got bit. And they were about to, like, they show us your arm, and she's like, no, you don't understand. This bite is like weeks old. I don't get infected, and that's why I was told not to tell anybody. Here I am telling you.
First person.
Right. Because they actually have like charts, you see in that there's like, if you got bit from the neck up, it's like 10, 15 minutes before you turn. You bit on the leg, it's like an hour. And just the fact that you have these industrial signs like stop signs or speeding signs, like that just have this mapped out, just shows you in 20 years, like, just how common and how much is known about this. Just a curious thing though. Do you know, well, you don't know, most people don't know, but Marlene, the actor, Meryl, who plays her, actually did the voice of the same character in the video game.
Yes, I saw that. Yeah,
it's like really dope. Like, and I'm seeing her in like all these shows, and I'm like, your voice of video game? I'm like, oh my god, like it's so cool. Yeah,
so cool.
So she got to play that character.
Actress. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, I Greenleaf and other shows. And
am I wrong to assume that Marlene and Joel were married? Was she Sarah's mother?
They're not related.
They just happened to look. They just happened to look.
See what Joel does. He's like a smuggler. He goes in and out. He does.
No,
like
I get
black art. And so she's one of those people that he has to either work around or work for. And she knows who he is, and he can do the job. Yeah. And that's why she kind of gives him. So it's like this Cannonball Run, Smokey and the Bandit thing. Like, okay, I know you can get her out of the city and out to this way station where we need to drop her off.
Yeah.
They have some kind of history. They know.
That's what I'm trying.
They're not. It's not romantic. It's not romantic.
Okay, I didn't know if she was actually
because him and the what's her name?
Tess.
Yes, Tess. Have been together for I guess a while because their relationship was obviously like this long arc. Yeah, and so I don't think those two he had room in his heart for two people.
Right. Well, you just see
hard man
after his daughter. Well, the man that he was prior to the infected. And the man that, or I would say prior to his daughter dying, dying in his arms, and the man that he is now are two totally different people. And you see it in episode 1 when he pulls out his truck and he has he's ex-military. He was a formerly military man, and so that he's got these certain skills of survival. But I think with everything that's happened, like you said, he's become this smuggler, he becomes this person, and he's able to get in and out, and he runs across Tess, who's kind of the same thing. Like, she was like a badass, like she was right there with him, and she was like, I'll go check, and but they are tasked to take Ellie, and then in episode 3 we find out that Frank, because this is the thing, we meet Bill in episode 3, and it's like it's so unexpected because you meet this guy who lives in this bunker, and he was like you said, Christy, the minute he saw the town was gone, he was like, finally it's all mine, and he just builds his own small town, his small haven, and he's literally having like 5-course meals, like these fancy meals that he's making, but he doesn't want anyone in his little town because he knows, like, if they come in, if I feed one person, I'm gonna have to feed 1 million. If they come in, and he has it booby trapped, so if the affected come, they get shot. He literally has figured out a way. He's been planning this his whole life. So when the world ends, I know how I'm gonna make my bunker into like my,
and I know how to around that whole neighborhood,
the whole
barbed wire, booby traps. Motion sensors, cameras.
He's living his best life, right?
And he has been planning. It's actually like so interesting to watch a survivalist getting their wet dream to come true. He goes downtown and turns on the natural gas plant.
Yes, and that was funny.
Is that if he's the only one using natural gas, whether it's being refined or not,
it would last forever. Yeah.
like, you know, and he's got this generator. He's pumping. He knows how to trick out I wouldn't know how to trick out the gas pump. You know, if I could get behind the counter, he's filling these barrels full of stuff. And the thing that I think is really interesting about this world that they built is that there's nobody there. It's not like other movies or shows where there's zombies or a pandemic where there's like this certain number of survivors who are just kind of roaming around and you're crossing paths with people. Like in The Walking Dead, you're crossing paths with people left and right because you didn't get bit, you didn't turn, or if you didn't die, you didn't turn. Right. This was airborne in the video game. You know, so there were places you didn't even want to be because there was airborne spores. So when it happened, so many people died that if you were off by yourself, no one was going looking for nobody or anything. These people got swept up they got swept up by the government. In the beginning of the scene, you see what happened. They kicked the doors in. They pulled all these people out of their houses. They put them on these trucks and took them either to the camps or they shot them in the street. Yeah. And so there's no one out there. So he only gets like 3 or 4 encounters with other humans through like 20 years or something like that. You know, obviously he meets his partner and he meets Joel and Tess. And then he gets that one attack from Raiders and kills all of them. He's like, the fence will take care of the rest of them. Like it's electrified and his booby traps ain't worried about him getting in. I'm like, yo, like, so yeah, you see that world is so empty. And then he is building this world within it. And this is the story that's told within that world. And it's just him and just his partner.
Yeah. Well, and it wasn't even a partner he thought he would find because Frank, Frank just so happens to be out and he just falls into one of his booby traps and he's like, I'm not infected. And within like maybe an hour or two, he lets Frank come in and have some food and he lets him take a shower. But within that time, they realize that, you know, Frank obviously wins him over and he realizes that he doesn't want to be alone and they fall in love and they spend, I think what it seemed like they were together for like 16 years or something. I don't know. And they're together until they die, you know, but it is just like, it was such like, if this episode doesn't get nominated for awards, like, I don't know.
Gotta be an Emmy.
Like seriously, seriously. Nick Offerman, you guys know Nick Offerman. He is surprisingly, he's Megan Mullally husband. He is an accomplished actor, and I am so happy that he has had that he has had the opportunity to play this type of character. One episode, he won. He does it all. He does it all in one episode. And the breakout star to White Lotus season 1, Murray Bartlett, who plays Frank, he becomes
another show you got to watch.
Oh my gosh, you got to watch White Lotus. Well, I've seen season 1 only. I'm still watching season 2, but
2 is good too.
Is it okay?
Oh, yeah.
But like literally, he's the breakout star of that show. Bill and Frank meet. They fall in love, and it's the love affair of all love affairs. And what is so funny is Frank is the one who helps Bill break down the walls. And he goes, look, I've been talking to this lady on the radio. And lo and behold, and he's like, what are you doing? This goes against everything.
We're having company.
Yeah. And Frank is like, I'm gonna have friends. And lo and behold, it's Tess. He had been talking to Tess. Yeah. And little do we know through this whole episode, everything that Frank has set up has kind of helped. It kind of all leads to Joel and helping Joel and Ellie get to another phase of where they get that truck, they get the battery, they are able to get transportation. And Ellie, it's funny, she shows up at their house and she's like, they got hot water. I'm taking a shower. This is a young girl who's never experienced a hot shower. You know, it's like, or
tells Joel, you're taking a shower because damn.
Damn.
Because you forget they've been traveling all this time. Ain't nobody taking baths. Ain't nobody like the stench. You don't think about those things. But this shows it's a beautifully it's just so well written.
The humanity, I think,
and the despair.
Going into the character, you know, you have this humanity that comes out of someone who probably we don't see as having that in today's world. Because when we look at survivalists with the don't tread on me, you know, individual survivalist folk, you know, are not people that are seen as very friendly and all of this in politics. kind of scary, you know, militiamen and all
have
this sort
all
of
these
thing.
guns and
Everywhere and waiting for the apocalypse.
He was that guy. Bill was that guy.
Then you see like once you know he gets this hard layer peeled back, you know, you see this guy, he plays this beautiful rendition of the Linda Ronstadt song on a piano. He's like amazing cook. He appreciates fine wine. You know, I mean, this guy actually like has a soul that for whatever reason he chose not to share or expose before.
Well, he didn't want to be outed. Like you noticed that?
And that
like,
too. He's probably like, in that world, not
you
seen as a candidate.
Yeah,
to
you
be
can't
on
be,
that level. Yep.
Yeah, you can't be other than a heterosexual male, like in that world. And like it's funny the way Frank does it. Like Frank goes, "Who's the girl that you're singing to?" When he does that rendition of that Linda Ronstadt song, and he goes, "There wasn't one," and he goes, "I know." Like he knew right then. He was like the way, like he probably knew he was part of his family the minute they met. He was like, "You're hiding behind these guns. You're hiding behind all of this craziness, and here you are, a soft, you know, human man that you didn't allow yourself to be, who thinks that they hate the world and probably did hate the world, but you hate yourself, and here we are."
And here's why I think Nick is going to get probably an Emmy nomination.
Oh, please!
And the love
I'm mad that he's only in one episode.
Right, you know, he doesn't die in one episode in the game, but he's around for a little bit more. But you know, that the vulnerability in the bedroom scene between the two, you know, just for the character he was playing and the kind of characters this actor has played. I mean, this was such a leap for him to get in and just perform, because he was so sardonic and sarcastic on Parks and Rec. He was a character actor. Even in the commercials, he's known for this Home Depot thing and being deadpan and everything. But then to be in this love scene where, you know, he's so vulnerable, he's almost like a child, you know, and to be able to appreciate that and see that play out on the screen, and not some weird, you know, way, but in a way that humanizes both of them, really, I think was what allowed for the rest of that episode to happen. And the note that he leaves for Joel a few weeks after they both died is really the mission statement for the rest of the show. Yes. It's at that moment that Joel realizes that Ellie is his mission. Yeah. Because, you know, you have this scene where Frank is Bill's mission. And he's like, we suck. He's basically saying, we suck. People don't like us. We don't like them. But we're here to save people that don't suck. And at that point, Tess was still alive in his mind, so he wrote about Tess.
You're here to save her.
Really could say you could save Ellie, and you see it in his face. Like he hasn't cried or shown any emotion any other time in the show, and he goes outside and he's like crying and he balls up that letter. And it's just like, man, like what? If this is what he takes, if this is the level of importance and weight that he now puts into this mission and this relationship with this girl, the rest of this series is set. We ain't got to worry about. It's going to be he is committed now. He's locked.
Glued, girl.
And I'm be there for it.
Yeah,
I just, oh my gosh. Yeah.
Well, one thing we didn't bring up was the whole Tess situation where we obviously meet her. She's like, let's do it. And when she finds out who Ellie is and what Ellie stands for, and the fact that Ellie could be the missing bit, the missing key to us solving this nightmare, Tess is like, Joel, there's no other reason. There's no other reason for us to do anything than for us to get her to where she needs to be. Like there's nothing else that we need to think about. And then in that same moment, they had just been like chased and almost killed by these zombies things. Like this is the first time we've seen them as they've mutated. Like throughout these years, we just saw the very glimpse of them being normal people acting like animals. Like I thought that was so cool, the way they had them moving and stuff. When you first see them in episode 1, it's terrifying. But then you skip to 20 years later, and here we are. They have mutated, and it's almost like you said, Christi. I think you mentioned the fungi had grown and like their heads, and they had almost become half human, half whatever this beast is. Yeah, like it's something. freaky and scary to look at. And they were just chased by them, but they killed them and they're good. And she's like trying to tell Joel, like, Joel, we have to, because he wants to go back. And she's like, no, we've got to get this girl wherever she needs to be. We got to do it. And then Ellie realizes she's infected. You're infected. Like I don't know, but I missed, like, what is it that
she
Ellie
just sensed
saw?
it.
She
Ellie's
sensed it,
she's
right?
just real smart. And
Wow.
Joel has a blind spot with Tess because he has more feelings for her than he would probably want to admit. So he didn't pick up on it. But she was just watching her movement or the way she was talking or whatever it was, but she knew. And what it really told me was that this isn't the first time this young lady has seen somebody near her turn.
And
so
she
knew again, she got bit on the neck. She had 10-15 minutes before she turned into a runner. Because you're a runner, and then you're a clicker, and then you're, and
that is cool. And the imagination in that, like, and like I'm telling you, Christy brought this up. You have to watch it. Like, obviously it's on HBO, but you have to watch it on HBO Max, because after every episode is like this whole like where the producers sit down, they explain the episode, things that you missed or didn't quite understand. They explain it to you. It's almost like
Station 11 did that too.
Station 11. Even Game of Thrones, like the new Game of Thrones, like all of the shows, I think this is like an HBO thing.
It's a great piece to do.
I
think it's brilliant. It's part of the formula, and it's part of what makes it work for someone like me, because I was skeptical.
I missed so many things. Me too.
Yeah,
me too. I was right there.
And the thing, what made me skeptical was, again, it was the whole zombie idea, but then I appreciate the rich practical science of it. So when oh my God, just thinking of sugar and flour that's in every freaking thing. And like,
you would not be able to stop it. There wouldn't be a damn thing you could do.
By the time you find out, that's
not right. That's not some bio lab type science,
so mundane deal. And it's in every home.
It's in everything.
And if it had been going for weeks, they would happen just like that. It'd be like one day everything's fine, and by noon the next day, everybody's running around getting bit and planes falling out the sky, and you're just like,
it's crazy.
Well, and it's one of those things where it's like they honestly tap into our fears of like what is possible. Like, I love a show that is gonna keep it like there's that thread of this shit could really happen. Like think about when COVID broke out. Like, we weren't thinking about like people who worked at the chicken packing places, and all of a sudden, like, or even worked at like Amazon or worked at all these places, and it was like all of a sudden the whole place had to shut down because 100 people had COVID. Like, and nobody knew, like, we needed to wear a mask, and we, like, one person could affect the whole freaking room.
Had me wiping down my grocery bags.
I was like,
got me spraying my wiping, like,
I wiped down groceries
creating
for
mud
a
rooms
year
when you ain't got a mud
because
room,
we didn't know. We didn't know. Like, we were literally at a Comic-Con, and someone said, this COVID thing is really getting bad. And blah, blah, blah. And we were like, really? What happened? And this is on a Sunday. Like, we were all like Saturday, Sunday at a Comic-Con. By that next week, by Friday, our plane tickets were canceled for the next event. 10 shows were canceled. We cannot gather in a space. Like, it was horrifying.
We were I will never forget it. We were in San Antonio, Texas at the state basketball championship, and 2 games had already happened. In the 3rd game at halftime, is this thing on? This will be the last game played today. Everybody, you ain't got to go home, but you got to get the hell out of here. Like, we have a pandemic.
It's a pandemic.
And we something were happening in the world. It was global. And on the way out of San Antonio, driving back to Dallas, we stopped at an HEB. And it was mayhem. There was nothing on the shelves.
Out of Texas, what is HEB?
HEB is a grocery store.
It's a grocery store.
Like a very popular, really cool grocery store. Yeah, huge.
Like a Wegmans in the
It's almost like and it's almost like a Target, but
like they
have
mass grand openings that people sleeping out on the streets to get into.
I can only imagine. Bedlam.
And everything was gone. Everything. Wow. I was in there, and I felt myself starting to go, I don't even understand this. Like, I'm taking video of there's no hand wipes, there's no Lysol, there's nothing. I mean, remember when they were selling Lysol for like $17.
Yeah.
Cans of Lysol.
Yeah.
And then you didn't see him for so long. So
yeah,
it's a memorable thing, but it's terrifying again, because ultimately it goes back to, I always say my favorite line: we are the horror. We can be horrible to ourselves, to each other, and we create this mass hysteria even within our own little bubbles, let alone among the rest. Like, we have no sense of self-awareness, just goes out the window, and some of us never have it, even in just regular life. But don't let this kind of shit happen, because we are the worst. And now
worst.
I'd be remiss if I didn't say, now there are some people that are brilliant, and they are kind, and they stepped in to help, like people who were feeding people and making sure, like, I think
humanity always comes through. Like, where we see the worst, there's always something that gives you the hope.
Yes,
like, you're reminded that we're not monsters. Like there's hope, and you're like, okay, we got to fight for that. If we do nothing else, let's fight for that. But it's a cool show, because like, obviously you have Ellie, who's like 14 years old, and she's asking him like all these questions, because this all happened before she was born.
Yeah,
and so she's like, she doesn't understand, and like they're walking through, and she's like, so what was life like when this, and what was this, and what was that, and she
saw the plane, and she was in Marvel that they were like, that was in the sky, and she's like, yeah, it really wasn't that big a deal. It's like, but you were in the sky, like
right. There weren't planes in her lifetime. Like, she's never been on a plane.
And then she got in a car for the first time. She's like,
and it was like a
spaceship. She's like, oh my god, like, wow. And
I mean, that's fascinating. Could you just imagine?
And the toughness, this tough exterior that she has, that allows her to survive in the world that she's born into, sometimes takes us away from the fact that she is a child, and then she gets these moments where she gets to be a child, and then we all get to see it, and you see Joel see it, and we see it through Joel as well as the screen, and we're like, oh, this is still like a 12-year-old kid, like, okay, it's fun, and I think it connect with the character.
It snatches him back into, to get into his own humanness, I guess, because prior to now, and what he lost, and he was a father, and so it just takes him back into that element. That's what I'm waiting to see. Like, I want to see it all develop, and then also, I will say this though, because Karen, you said something like he's a completely different person. He was hard even in the beginning though. He never was. And I want to say it has to do with, of course, now he's raising a daughter by himself. So clearly there was some other trauma with the mother not being around. So he's been hardened, because even the brother was like, what would he do without you? Like, he's losing it, and so it,
and it may have been his time in the service too.
You don't know all those elements,
these barriers. He goes in half bottled up.
I think we're gonna find out. Like, we're gonna find out what happened to him, who was Joel before, and why was he a single dad, and we're gonna find out all these things. But if you have not watched this, guys, I am telling you, watch this show from somebody who doesn't like shows like this. I am living
Karan Ashley did not want to start watching the show, y'all. When I sent her that message, she was like, I
had been hearing, and people were like, you need to watch this. And I was like, I did not want to watch it. But then I was like, Hilton knows me. He knows I like a show that has a real story, real characters. He knows. So if he's telling me to watch it, I need to watch it, and I need to get past the zombies, because there's something good here. And honey, there's a pot of gold. There is a pot of gold. If you have not watched The Last of Us on HBO, go watch it. Get somebody's HBO Max. Like, I don't know what to tell you, but this show is the show to watch this year. It is giving you everything you ever would want. Guys, that's it. We've been talking forever. We can go on forever about this show, but
we could go on forever. And we will.
We will.
The series ain't
We're
done
going to come back. Yeah, we're going to come back and wrap up the series, because I know that season 1 is going to drive us over a cliff. And we are going to be like, we're going to need like some resuscitation. We're going to need some. So far, this is The Last of Us. Excuse me. This is us. The Last of Us.
Not that one.
How many bops do we give it? We giving, how many bops you giving it, Christy? How many bops?
I'm out of 10, right?
Out of 10.
I'm gonna give it a 7. I'm gonna go with a 7, and that's a strong 7, y'all. Don't get me wrong. That's just because I'm going with.
I feel like we're playing spades here.
I know. What
I
you
got
got?
I got 7 and a possible.
Can we
do a Boston?
That's it. I got a 7 and a possible. Yeah. 7 and a
9 bops. I am there. I am here for it, and I think I'm gonna end with 10 bops, but I'm giving it 9 bops.
I know.
I had
a
slight nightmare, and I don't like to be scared. I don't like to be scared, so that is the only thing that is making me go. Because I just don't like to. Like, I'm like, why am I watching something that's gonna keep me up at night and make me think of life this deeply? Luckily, I have my husband who he been collecting. When we heard about COVID, when he was getting masks, and I didn't even know he was collecting masks. So when it hit, we had a whole supply of masks, y'all.
That's so funny.
Hilton, how many bops are you giving?
I have got
The Last of Us,
because I am a fan of the genre, and I have watched every series and movie around it, and I have a lot to compare it with. This 3 episodes at this point, it's 10 out of 10, especially with this third installment.
Yeah,
it has done so much in 3 episodes that 3 seasons of The Walking Dead was not able to do. And I think we are really looking at, I think, the next best zombie storyline. And there's so much story, and I'm so excited. Another great job. I just can't wait till Sunday to catch another episode.
I can't wait, guys. This is the BOP, the BLERD Official Podcast. Thank you for tuning in. We love you. We mean it. We'll see you guys later. Bye.
Tune in every Tuesday for a new episode of the BOP, the BLERD Official Podcast.